Hey! Okay, so here's my warm-up and stretching sequence for legs and hips. So usually at the studio I start off by running in circles, just to like get the blood flowing. So I'll run in circles, I'll do some high knees, and some kick your butt things like from PE. And I'll usually do some jumping jacks, and I really like basketball jumps as a warm-up. They're the ones where you touch the floor, jump up with your arms high, touch the floor again. I usually do like 10 of those. I do some like shoulder stuff, but I'm not going to tell you about it because that's not what this video is about. And then there's, once the blood's kind of started to flow, there's 3 like kind of stretch but still moving a lot, kind of warm up stuff that I do. One of them is from this. You just like kind of move back and forth in this, and you can put your hands on the ground to help you in it. You want to go until your leg is totally straight, and when your leg is straight, you want to make sure that you're really engaging your leg, so your foot is going to be either really flexed or really pointed. That's how you make sure that you have that engagement, and you can try to focus on keeping your heel on the ground. Once you've moved back and forth in it, some you can stay in it, again making sure to really engage that straight leg. So just stay in it for a bit and sink into it, especially when you're sinking into it. That's one of the points you want to focus on, getting that heel on the ground. Cool, so that's one. The second warm-up stretch thing that I do is it's downward dog based, but you can totally do it from your forearms. So I'll even show it to you from forearms. So with your forearms on the ground, you're going to come up here and kind of do this walk. The idea with it is that you're trying to get your heel to the floor. I'm much more successful with it when I'm up, so you can do it from your forearms. Don't be discouraged, your heels aren't going to be on the floor. So there's that. You can do a bit of side to side here, which doesn't work on your hips so much as it does your obliques. And then the really big one is plant one foot firmly, take the other one, make sure it's really straight, and just kick it up, like straight up. Don't kick it out to the side because it's dumb. Just straight up. Maybe 10 times. I don't know how many I did, that's okay. And then open your hip up by letting your foot kind of roll back. There is a yoga pose from downward dog where you go all the way with this and flip over, called wild thing, but you can't do that from your forearms. But you can think about that motion from here as sort of the goal of opening this up enough that you could flip, just without losing your balance. Key point. So yeah, and you want to do that on the other side too. Obviously, I'm going to do it for my hands because that's how I'm used to doing it and it's comfortable. But you can totally do it for your forearms. Let's do, and the third kind of stretch, kind of warm up thing is, so you're going to be laying on your back, but up on your elbows. And while you're here, you want to think about keeping your core engaged. You don't want this, right? You want to engage your core and pull it down. It would be really hard to actually keep the small of your back on the ground, like you'd have to slump really hard into your shoulders, but you know, kind of think about being close to that. So you're going to have one foot planted on the ground, the other leg is straight out in front of you, and again, with that straight leg, you want to make sure it's really engaged, so your foot is either totally pointed or totally flexed. And then you're going to kick it toward your face, maybe like 10 times. I don't know how many I've done. Just going to switch. And this, yeah, it's a warm up, like I'm breathing. And then, and again, remember keeping your back down. One that I really love for opening up my hips is you take, I'll show you on my near leg, you take one leg and shoot it up, come around and back to your starting position. So up, out, around, up, out, around. My hip pops like every time. And then go the other way. And I'm still thinking about my lower back. Ooh. I'm keeping it on the ground. And, you know, not like letting my whole body fall over with that, so it really isolates the hip. Man, I'm really poppily today. Okay. Whew. So yeah, I'm pretty warm. At this point, my body's warmed up. So here's the stretching sequence. Oh, and one more like kind of warm up thing that you can do that is very hip focused is you can totally lay on your back, hands behind your head, and let your knees fall to one side and then the other. And I kind of like to give them a little bounce at the bottom. I don't know if it actually really helps with it. It totally makes this more of a stretch. But I find just like moving them around and getting them used to being tossed around a bit is helpful for stretching and for probably aerial in particular. Okay, great. So for the stretching, pick one leg to start with. Obviously you're going to do this sequence on both sides. I'm just going to show you my right side sequence. Most people have a side for their splits that's much better than the other. My right side is my better side. My left hamstring is pulled. And I already did all these stretches today, so I think I'm just going to do my right side. Okay, so if you're doing your right side, you're going to take your right foot, plant it in front of you to be in this lunge. My back leg, my left leg, the knee is on the ground, shin is on the ground, my toes are pointed out behind me. You want your right shin to be perpendicular with the ground, straight up and down. What you should be thinking about in this stretch, so it's a hip flexor stretch, so you should feel it here. You can deepen this stretch and make it better in a number of ways. One is just thinking about that hip and think about moving it forward and down. You can think about making sure your chest isn't tipping this way. If you really keep your chest pointing forward or even slightly to the right, that'll make that stretch deeper. You can take your left hand and reach it. Ooh, yeah. To help extend that line, which makes the stretch deeper. You can also tuck your back toe under. Make sure your back leg is really straight, and that way the weight of your body will pull down on your hip flexor and a little bit of your quad too. I usually just do this and think about pulling that down. You kind of like engage your butt to like force it a little bit. Cool. So from here, you tip back. I'm not actually sitting on my back foot. I'm just sort of like
kneeling on my back leg. Your front leg, your right leg, is going to slide back just a little bit as you do that. Again, my leg is totally straight, really engaged. I'm really flexing my foot to make sure that's happening. So you want to reach as far forward as you can. If you can reach your toes, that's great. If you can't, do your thing, that's fine. If you can reach, you can use this as an opportunity to stretch your foot flexing and like pull your toes down toward your ankle, and that just kind of works all these tendons back here. Make sure you're grabbing, your whole toes, not just your big toe, if that's what you're doing. And again, I'm making sure to really engage my leg. So that forward fold, and then you point your leg and fold over it. And with forward folds, we think about the fold coming from our hips rather than from our backs, right? So ideally with a flat back, get as far as you can. My teacher Sarah actually likes to put a forearm just above her knee here to like press that leg to be really straight. I don't usually, but that's an option. So when you're sick of this forward fold, you slide your right foot back up to where it was in your lunge. And I don't know if you can see me. I don't know. I'm going to check to make sure the camera's still on. Oh yeah, great. Okay. So you return to your lunge and go into this pose that I think in yoga is called lizard. I often have to wiggle my hip to make sure it's not going to get in my way. Because you're going to come to the inside of your foot here and bring your chest as low as you can. When I first started doing this, my left arm, my outside arm, would get like close to having the elbow on the ground. My inside arm was like straight. At this point, I can get a lot deeper, which is cool. You want to make sure that your front foot is planted, like you can feel all four corners of your foot on the floor. Don't let it roll to the outside. That's a different stretch. So your shin is going to be straight up and down. I feel this sort of like on the outside top edge of my leg, maybe like the bottom corner of my butt. I don't know what these muscles are called. So there you are in that. And then the next one, it took me a while to trust this stretch. Be careful with it. You're going to scoot your foot toward the center a little bit and tip it onto its side, so it's on my pinky toe side there. Let this knee fall to the side somewhat, and then come down over that. I have my left arm planted with my forearm down, and my right arm just comes around for balance. I don't really have much weight on my right hand. And you'll feel that this stretch hits a different part of the sort of outside thigh area. If you want to put your foot behind your head eventually, this is a good stretch for that. Circus people. Okay, when you're done with this stretch, take your foot and pull it in. This is pigeon. I have a few things to say about pigeon for you. Pigeon. First of all, you can again think about engaging this hip forward and down. You'll feel that changes the stretch pretty significantly as opposed to when you're sort of rolled out here. There are two ways to change the intensity of pigeon. One is the angle of your shin. My shin is sort of like, if pointing straight out from me is a line, it's at like a 45-degree angle, I would say. If you want to make it a less intense stretch, you pull your foot in closer to your crotch. If you want to make it a more intense stretch, you push your shin out so that it's more perpendicular to that line. This is a deeper stretch than I want. So you can play with that to adjust the intensity of the stretch. Another way to adjust the stretch is to work on folding forward in it. My favorite way to hold pigeon is to actually rest my forehead on the floor and take my hands and put one on my knee and one on the sole of the ball of my foot. And you can kind of rock there to feel where you need the stretch. I just find that being on my forehead lets me rock better. So there's pigeon, and then this is like one of my favorites, actually. So from pigeon, once you sit up, if you chose to fold forward, you take this back leg, and this is going to be a really great quad and hip flexor stretch, and you pull your foot in towards you. Once you've got a good hold on it, you can turn your chest so that it's facing forward as much as possible again. And you'll feel, I mean, you can kind of choose where to focus this stretch. Like if you just focus on pulling this in, it's going to be a quad stretch. If you focus on turning your chest forward and engaging this hip forward and down, it's going to be a hip flexor stretch. If you try to do all of them at the same time, it's just going to be really intense. So there's that one. So once you let go of that, you actually sit back on that back foot. Let your forward leg straighten out. And we're going to do another forward fold. So again, I'm really engaging my leg. It's like it's the thing to do. Always really engage your leg. If you're doing something where it's straight and you're stretching it, make sure it's really freaking engaged. Cool. So again, you can pull back on your toes to work on your foot flexibility. And work on that forward fold. One really good tip that I learned from yoga for stretching is using your breath like this. When you breathe in, think about extending taller and sort of toward where you're going, and when you breathe out, try not to lose any of that length, but like sink into it. So breathe in, lengthen, breathe out, sink. It's helpful. I like that one a lot. When you're done flexing, point it. My ankle hurts today. And work on that stretch some more so you can work on your breathing. Cool. So once you're done with your forward fold, you take your straight leg and shoot it out. So I pivoted on my left knee, so it went from pointing in the same direction as my foot to pointing almost in the opposite direction. Superman. And again, my leg is really engaged. I'm really, really pointing that toe. So from here, you plant your forearms on the floor. Slide that foot out as far as it will even sort of comfortably go. And you can rock forward and back with this to find where you need the stretch. It's going to be a groin stretch for the most part. Cool. Hold that. And then generally you want to be holding stretches for at least like 20 or 30 seconds, depending on which aspect of your muscle, like whether it's the muscle tissue or the fascia or whatever you're trying to stretch. There's different lengths of time you're supposed to hold things for. I don't know everything about it. just stating that. Hold your stretches. I'm going through it quickly. Cool. Okay, so from here, you sit back, get your foot out of the way so that you're actually sitting on the floor and your foot's kind of like awkward saucing behind you. Engage your straight leg and go kind of sideways. So reach towards your toe. And you want to keep your chest facing forward here. It's not this. It's a side stretch, and you'll feel it in your hamstring as well as in your side. Like I said, you're reaching toward your toe. If you can reach your toe, try to reach past it. I like to tuck my elbow on my bottom arm in front of my leg to make sure that I stay forward. Some people who can get really deeply into this stretch tuck their shoulder in front. I'm not there yet. You can do whatever the fuck you want with your arm. Whatever feels good for you. And then working toward I'm scooting around because I'm working in a confined space. Working toward your splits from here. Eventually you work on straightening that back leg. And you know what? If you just straighten it that much and that's plenty for you, cool. Mine did not used to go as straight as it is. And there are people who go a lot straighter than I do. And when you straighten that, I feel it right here. You'll feel it wherever you feel it. You'll feel it for sure. Come out of that, shake it off a little bit, and then we're gonna go into our splits. So again, with our splits, you want your front leg really engaged. I like to really flex my foot to make sure that that's happening. There's 2 stages of your split. There's your square split and your open split, or your cheating split. So for your square split, which we're going to do first, you want to make sure that your hips are facing totally forward, totally square. And you're going to slide your front foot forward as far as you can with those hips facing totally forward. Which is probably not very far. There's my square splits. And again, I'm engaging the shit out of my my whole leg, my quads especially. That's going to protect your hamstring. It's just going to be protective for you generally. One thing you can do to work on deepening this, and really any stretch, is you can work on, you can hold a really hard engagement for like 10 seconds and then let it go, and your body, because you've exhausted it temporarily, releases enough that you can actually get deeper in the stretch. So from here, to do that, you can think about pushing your heel and your knee as far into the ground as you can. Cool. So when you're tired of holding your square splits, again, really engage, do this carefully, open it up so your hips don't have to be facing forward anymore. You want to be engaging hard enough that you can hold yourself up. Even if you're way up here, you want to be engaging hard enough that you can hold yourself up. If you're sinking into it enough that you really need your hands, I mean, like, touch and go balance work is different, but if you need your hands to support you, because you're not holding yourself up with your legs, you're risking injuring yourself. So be careful. Cool, so that's our front splits sequence. Obviously you want to do that on the other side as well. I'm not going to, because I already did my stretches today. And that's my bad side, and I try not to stretch it too much, actually. Cool, so setting up for our straddle splits, our hip opening splits. By the way, if you want to like kind of pound that splits out, it feels great. I highly recommend it. So setting up for your straddle splits, make sure your hips are nice and warm. Sometimes we do this kind of like walkie thing where we're just moving based on or moving across the floor based on what our hips are doing. You can do that with straight legs or with butterfly legs. It's pretty attractive. You can do this guy again, right? Just make sure you're warm, side to side, and ready to go. Cool. So there's obviously there's the butterfly, right? So you put the soles of your feet together and work on having a really straight back. Think about engaging your knees down. I remember in PE we used to like press them down with our elbows, but I find that that does something weird to my torso shape and I don't like it. So I just think about engaging down with my muscles rather than forcing it with my elbows. And you can also think about folding forward here and again making sure it comes from your hips and not from your spine, because this is how you get a good stretch. This is how you get a weird, like, unhelpful stretch. So there's that. We also do, it's called pancake because the goal is to be flat as a pancake. Where we straddle, not as wide as you can go, even just like a comfortable straddle. You want to be engaging the shit out of your legs, always, all the time. If your feet are flexed, you can think about engaging your legs hard enough that it actually picks your heels up off the floor. And then you want to fold forward. Again, trying to keep it coming from your hips. This is what I'm talking about, that we just are not built with really flexible hips. Like my forward splits have come so far. And my straddle, like just maybe a month ago, I started being able to get my elbows on the ground here. And I'm rounding my back to do it. But like this stretch used to be here for me. So the fact that I'm like 6 inches forward now is like kind of cool. But yeah, so the goal is to just fold completely forward from the hips onto the ground, flat as a pancake. Maybe one day. Cool. So some other hip opening ones other than just doing the straddle split. Straddle splits, by the way, if you do want to do them, you put your legs wide, really engage them as always, slide them out as far as you comfortably can. Come to your forearms, you want that to be a straight line. Like if you drew a line from heel to heel, you want your crotch to be right above it. Really engaging your legs. But other hip stretches, other hip openers you can do. Happy Baby is a really good one. It's a yoga pose where you lay on your back and let your feet come here and you grab your feet and you'll feel that, trust me. So there's Happy Baby. There are different ways to hold your feet. I don't know them all. You can experiment with it. A gentler version of the straddle split is, I think in yoga it's called frog, where you're just on your knees and you put your legs as wide as you can and you can come to your forearms. This is another good spot to do that thing where you engage the shit out of things and then relax and you'll get deeper, so you can think about digging your knees into the floor. And like I'm really engaging. Like you can see my body kind of pick up when I do it. I think I have like 6 seconds. I don't know if I got any deeper, but that's the idea. Other helpful stretches for like here down. I really like stretching my IT bands and I don't do it enough. A really good IT band stretch is take one leg, Put it so that your shin is parallel in front of you. Take your other leg, stack your ankle above, like right on top of your knee. Make sure this knee is right on top of your ankle, which it should be if your shins are the same length. Sit up straight. The idea is that your knee is working toward your ankle. If it's already there, we're built differently, and you can work on leaning forward in this, again with a straight back. Look, I'm doing the thing where you breathe and get a little deeper with your exhales. You can switch when you're ready. Oh. Yeah, so there's your IT band stretch. One that I'm not going to show you because I don't have stairs in my room, but is really helpful if you're working on your calf, which I remember especially when I was running all the time, I was very worried about my foot not flexing back far enough. I actually went to physical therapy once, and he was like, oh yeah, your foot doesn't flex back very far. Something to be aware of. Oh, there we go. Anyway, so if you're working on your foot being able to flex back, which you probably are, right? Because for a squat, you want to be able to have your, I know, don't critique my squat form, but you want to be able to have your shin travel forward a certain amount, right? I do aerial. I don't fucking lift. So for that one really good stretch is to just find a step, like a stairs would be really helpful. Find a step on that, and just like hang on to the railing and make sure you don't fall over, and put all your weight on that foot, and you'll feel yourself sink down towards your heel, and that'll be a really nice stretch there. Yeah, man, just generally move around. I think especially if your work is having you sit a lot, even just like getting up once an hour and doing those like warm-up stretch things, right, which can be really quick. Just like do your side to sides, do your downward dog things, do the laying down and kicking yourself in the face thing. Just do a set of those like once every hour or two. Keep your hips from like seizing up from sitting all the time. I think that'll be really helpful. That's basically it. Stretching is just something that you have to like be consistent with, just like strength work. It's your body adapting due to repeated requests that you make of it. So you just got to be consistent with it, and you'll make progress, and you'll be squatting with perfect form before you know it, just like me. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions.